Insights on AllNews Nigeria TV, and as always, I'm your host, Praise Ganiyu. And yes, if you are new here, Insight is where I talk about any trending issues from any sector. So guys, let's take a look at the trending issues for this week. COVID-19 death increases to 754 as Nigeria recorded 463 new cases. Bill to increase punishment of kidnappers to life imprisonment. Hush Puppy denied bail request in US. Oshibanjo opens up on contesting for president in 2023. Federal government unveils 52-page guidelines for schools reopening. So today we are going to be talking about the federal government, the attempts to reopen schools. Federal government have been on this issue for about a month ago. They came up with the safe reopening of schools, these guidelines. They also said, I think after 2 weeks, and they said only graduating students can actually resume back to school. I mean students in JSS3, SS3, Primary 6, so they can conclude with their exams and get ready for the next class. But this same federal government also cancelled WAEC for these same graduating students. And on Tuesday, they came up with a 52-page guidelines for the reopening of schools, and that is what we are going to be talking about today. And as always, I'm not here alone in the studio. I have with me Mr. Ademola. Mr. Ademola is an educationist and also the owner of Blue Sky Secondary School. Please join me as I make welcome Mr. Ademola. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for joining me on today's show.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so we're going to be talking about the federal government, reopening of schools. Federal government have been on this, like I said earlier, federal government have been on these issues for like a month ago. They said schools will be reopening. They gave out guidelines to follow. I think after weeks after that, they also said only graduating students can resume school without the exact date of this resumption. They were just let's say keeping our hopes high that okay, schools will resume. I think a week ago they cancelled WAEC for Nigerian students, and WAEC is a West African thing whereby if our students right here can't write the exams, definitely schools outside the country, like the West Africa countries, will write this WAEC. So now, just yesterday, they came up with 52-page guideline that okay, if schools must resume, they must do so and so. Before we even go right into the 52-page guidelines, let's talk about the 4-month lockdown. Schools have been on shutdown. Everything has some markets, though markets are now opened, some places are now, people can now move, but schools have been on shutdown for the past 4 months. So you're an educationist. So what will you say the effect of school shutdown is on teachers, owner of schools, even students, to say?
Yes. Let me start by saying this. Government constitutes a body. They are policy makers. At the same time, they are our leaders, so to speak. But the fact remains that they also know that they are committing crime against humanity by not opening schools. In the sense that schools in any country, education, let me put it that way, serve a vital role, plays a vital role in society to the development of that organization, society, and the country at large. I will say this. The fact remains that for every action, for every cause, there must be effect. Yeah. There are always consequences for everything that one does. I wouldn't want to take much time. Let me go straight to the question. Now, the effect, when you talk about effect could be positive, could be negative. So in this aspect, the effect on the student is that the student constitutes, let me say, that the majority in terms of teenagers, in terms of youth, and we all know that they're always there to experiment. So now we have been hearing all kinds of news in terms of maybe increase in courtesan, increase in the rape cases, increase in vandalism, increase in vulgarisms, all those stuff. Let me say this without any apology. Those things will keep on increasing as long as the children are on the streets, as long as they are not within the school setting. Because the devil itself will occupy their minds with something. The adage says that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. All
right, so let's go right into the effect on teachers and school owners. Okay. We've talked about the effect on the students. So what effect does this school shutdown for the past 4 months have on the teachers and school owners?
Yeah, that's very interesting. You see, the effects of the school owners and the teachers are so great. One, let me put it this way: you have been doing something, and you have the passion for it. And when you talk of passion, no matter how passionate you are, if the money is not involved,
Of course.
the passion will die. That's the basic truth. No matter how passionate you are, that money is the driving force that keeps you passionate and that keeps you going. And teachers, this is where they get their livelihood. They have their families to take care of. They have a lot of things to do. They will pay bills just like any other person in society. They will go to markets. They will take care of their children. They also maintain themselves. Now, their source of living is being taken away for months. They are human beings. Let me tell you the truth. The fact remains that most of these teachers will turn to beggars on the streets. Because the circumstances make them to turn to beggars. Not because they don't have something to do, but for the mere fact that the power that be, quote and unquote, rather than useless. The power that be. And so having said this, some teachers, will turn to beggars. That's number one. Some teachers at the same time will start losing interest in the profession. And once they're losing interest in the profession, it goes back to the society. It will affect the students, it will affect the government, it also affects the country as a whole. When you talk about school owners, the operators of schools, you see, the first thing remains that we all know what it takes to run a private organization, school as a case study. Most of these school owners operate on loans, and banks will not smile with you or at you when you hold them money. Now, with this and it is through the income, what they get, the school fees from the children that they use to, to service their loans. Now that the schools have been locked down, I can assure you that a lot of school owners are going to be frustrated. Of course, many of them will even begin to lose interest in running because the first in the education sector, let me tell you a basic fact: you don't derive much money. It's like it's just like an NGO in which you render services and you get little in returns. So most of the school owners are going to be in perpetual debt. Of course, and based on that, most of them will lose interest in the educational sector. And by doing that, they'll be jobless. Of course, if some of them they don't have faith, they can even commit suicide. In times of maybe they have too much of things, of depression all over the place to take care of. So the effects on the teachers, the effect on the school owners are so great.
Alright, so moving straight to the next question, we are going to be asking if schools nationwide actually have the capacity to implement the infection control measures. So, but before that, let's go on a very short break. I'll be right back. Alright, so guys, welcome back to the show. I still have with me Mr. Ademola in the studio. Thank you so much for staying with us. Alright, so like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about if schools have the capacity to, implement these infection control measures that has been put in place. So what do you think about that? Do you think schools nationwide actually have the capacity to do that?
My answer would be in the affirmative.
Okay.
No, because I believe nothing is impossible. Let's put it this way: the WHO, to start with, since the inception of the pandemic, coronavirus, they released some certain guidelines as well as regard how to cope with this pandemic. Maybe in terms of sanitizing, in terms of washing your hands, social distance, in terms of nose mask and all the rest, in terms of cleanliness. I think these are simple precautionary measures. For example, we all know that cleanliness is very important. We don't need to be told. Cleanliness is next to godliness. I think in terms of schools maintaining all these measures, they will do everything humanly possible.
Of course, to protect themselves.
Yes, to safeguard the interests of the students. But government on its own part, you must also understand that government as well has a lot of responsibilities. But everything has to do with finance. Because when you're talking in terms of putting facilities on ground, to actually keep things moving, you talk in terms of personnel that will also be involved. If government is ready, to do the needful, why not if not? The onus lies on government for them to be truthful and to also dish out money and bring out very good strategies, by which everybody, every student, can be taken care of.
So thank you so much again for that beautiful answer. So moving on to the last question for today. We've talked about the effects for the past 4 months on the students, the teachers, and also school owners. We also talked about the capacity of these schools, which you said, of course, schools we want to safeguard the lives of their students and also their own too. Nobody wants to die. So moving to the last question. So do you think there are any community-related risks to the reopening of schools?
To me, I can't see any risk. Why? The students, the children, the kids, they live with their parents. Okay, when you talk in terms of community risk or danger, I can't see any risk. For example,
the risk here is that when one student maybe comes to school and comes in contact with...
No, I want to answer that question. That's where I'm going.
Oh no, he goes back home, play with
the first treatment that they are relating together now.
Yes.
That's more reason for the mere fact that all these measures have been taken care of, are being in place. I don't think there should be any kind of risk community-wise. When the children close, actually when they close, students do close, they move in drove, let's put it that way. But as they are moving out, they disperse to their various homes. At least they close in drove, as in they close together, especially in public schools or all over the place, they close, you see them, they close maybe together, but as they are moving, as they leave the entrance, the exits, the entrance, they disperse. Now, in terms of community risk, I can't see any risk because number one, okay, as we are talking about now, the students, they are at home. Are they affected? They relate together, they play ball together, they do all kinds of things together, they move together, they go to game center together, viewing center together. We don't have any, we don't hear any kind of, rampage of effect. So we should stop not seeing the fear in terms of community risk. There will be no risk. As long as the system continues, as long as the orientation continues, there will be no effect. So there's not any kind of diverse effect. Maybe because students go back to school. The fact remains that let us bear the cat. Let school be reopened. Other things will take care of itself.
So this is a bonus question. So I'm just going to throw this. So you are a school owner too.
Yes.
So all school owners obviously want school to reopen. So as a school owner, how are you preparing for the reopening of schools?
Yes, that's a very good question. You see, let me say, I'm putting some things in place. Even before the issue of lockdown, the issue of sanitizer in particular, then in talk of fumigation, I try to fumigate my premises. Then I try to put the sanitizer stuff in place, then ensuring that the environment is very clean, ensuring that in terms of cold waste, all those things have been removed. Then these are the necessary things I think I'm putting in place. With the view that when the students come in, there will be no any problem. better stuff.
All right. So thank you so much, Mr. Ademola. We really appreciate you. It's a pleasure having you on this show. Thank you once again. All right, guys, that will be all for today. Thank you for joining me on another beautiful episode of Insights on AllNews Nigeria TV. And I still remain your host, Praise Ganiyo. Do well to like this video, drop your comments on any of the issues discussed here, and of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos. See you next time.